Do you recall the famous tagline, "In space, no one can hear you scream"? I'm Joseph Piper. Up next on Coming Attractions, a discussion of one of the greatest monsters in the history of motion pictures. Welcome to Coming Attractions. I'm Joseph Piper. On Friday, May 25th, 2018, Bruce Crawford will present his 42nd classic film event at 7 p.m. at the beautiful Joslyn Art Museum in Omaha, Nebraska. Bruce has brought these events to us with special legendary guests for an incredible 26 years. There's been Psycho with Janet Leigh, Singing in the Rain with Debbie Reynolds, King Kong with Ray Harryhausen and Ray Bradbury, Young Frankenstein with Cloris Leachman, The Birds with Tippi Hedren, and the list just goes on and on. So now, for his 42nd event, he's presenting a science fiction horror landmark that has spawned nearly 40 years of sequels and influenced countless derivations. Please welcome my guest, Bruce Crawford. Bruce, thanks for coming on again. It's always a pleasure.
Great to be here.
Tell us, let's mention this first. Tickets go on sale April 26th at all Omaha Hy-Vee stores,
Right.
customer service counters.
Yes.
Proceeds benefit the Nebraska Kidney Association, and they can call 402-932-7200 for more information.
And they can buy tickets over the phone and online too.
And online.
Yes.
Online, how do they?
They can call the number and they'll give them
They'll
the,
give them
they'll
the
give them
website.
the
Okay,
information,
great.
yes.
I'll let you announce your special guest to viewers.
Well, actress, she's been comedic and dramatic and leaves quite an impression in everything she does. She was a child star and of course grew up to be a great adult actress. Veronica Cartwright, who played Navigation Officer Lambert in the film that we're going to be hosting, the tribute we're doing 40 years of.
And if that name isn't bringing a face to people's minds, can you just talk about a little few things she's been in?
Oh
other than
gosh, she was
Alien?
with Shirley MacLaine and Audrey Hepburn and William Wyler's
The Children's Hour.
Children's Hour,
Yeah.
yes. And I'm going to say the quiet one, no, it's the Children's Hour. And of course she was in The Birds, which we did 4 years ago
Right.
with Tippi Hedren. She played Rod Taylor's little sister who had the little lovebirds, and she was attacked by the school kids. She was a young kid at the time being attacked by the
She always
birds.
seemed to play characters that cried a lot.
A lot. She was really good at that. And then of course she's done so many other TV shows. Daniel Boone TV series she was on for many years. And her list of credits is just endless. Films would be, of course, the decent, wonderful remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers with Donald Sutherland. And Wishes of Eastwick, which is a real funny film.
Sure.
And of course she was in Will and Grace and so many TV shows. The X-Files now too. And of course the film we're going to have her honor with us.
she's her sister's Angela Cartwright, who was in Sound of Music and
Lost in Space.
Lost in
Planet of the
Space.
Apes, so Lost in Space.
And they're very, sometimes you can't really tell them apart. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
they're pretty similar looking.
They have
yeah.
Angela has darker hair.
Darker
right?
hair,
Yeah,
yes. A
okay.
little bigger in size.
So Alien has a 97% critic score.
Oh, I'm
Did we
sure.
say it's Alien that we're bringing?
I guess we
I
are
guess
now.
Okay, so the movie's Alien. So it has a 97% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 94% audience score.
Pretty high.
It made Sigourney Weaver a star. She was the youngest cast member. I guess her and Veronica
About the
Cartwright
same
were
age,
the same
actually.
age.
Yeah.
And least experienced, though. She'd
Yes.
been on Broadway.
Yeah.
Apparently was discovered on Broadway by, the story I got was that Warren Beatty had talked to Ridley Scott, and Ridley Scott went and saw her in this off-Broadway show, and that's how that started.
Wow, that's cool.
So can you tell us just the premise of the film and how it reflects maybe the zeitgeist of that time that it was made?
Well, it was, I don't know how much of the zeitgeist it influenced or was part of, but it certainly created it, part of it. It's a story, about, it's actually a form of a remake in a sense, or a reimagining of a B picture from the late 50s called It, the Terror from Beyond Space, that Dan O'Bannon, the screenwriter for Alien, was inspired by. About an alien life form that gets on a spacecraft going back to Earth, and they have to fight it to survive because there's no place to go. In space, no one can hear you scream, as you said, and there's nowhere where you're going to go because you can't run away. It's on the spacecraft with you. And that's pretty much the gist of the whole movie. And it's like if Alfred Hitchcock had made a science fiction thriller monster film in space, this would have been it, because Ridley Scott went back to Hitchcock's MacGuffins and Hitchcock's less is more, and the less you see, the scarier it is.
Well, what
he totally did that.
The famous Hitchcock, I've got it here, the famous Hitchcock remark, if I can dig it up here in my notes. Hitchcock. Oh, his famous thing was, there's a bomb under a table.
Right, the MacGuffin.
It goes off, it's action. It doesn't go off, it's suspense.
Right.
So it has that element, and that's why Hitchcockian like it, or followers like it because it's moody and it's dark. Gorehounds like it because it's because of the chest burster, and sci-fi fans love the hard sci-fi trappings and the hardware. And men love it because of the survival, battle for survival, and women love it because she isn't a helpless victim.
And she's a leading character.
Yeah. It's also sort of based on The Thing, isn't it? The Howard Hawks movie.
In a sense, it is. It's funny because it predates the Carpenter remake by 3 years, and it is similar to that in that the creature, when it implants itself as a parasite into any living organism, as a host, it imparts part of that living organism's genetics, in a sense. It's in the case of this film, the alien is inside John Hurt, as we know, and it became humanoid and it had 2 arms and 2 legs. So it must have picked up that, at least as far as the story goes.
It comes into John Hurt with the face thing?
It's a parasite, yeah.
Okay, so it snaps on his face. And John Hurt is famous for playing the Elephant Man.
Among other things.
And he was up for an Oscar as Best Leading Actor for that, lost to Robert De Niro that year, I think, for
Raging Bull.
But he's known to have parts where he dies on screen a lot. There was a joke that it wasn't whether he was going to die, it was like, how is he going to die in this movie? So he dies in the alien, when the alien bursts
the
out
chest
of
bursting scene was the most shocking event since Janet Leigh's shower scene in Psycho. It's right on the same level of shock that people did not see that coming. I did when I saw it as a kid. I came out of nowhere.
How old were you when you saw it?
Oh gosh, I was a teenager, so it was shocking.
It won Oscar for Best Visual Effects too.
And most deservedly so because of the unique look about it. It was grunge in space. They'd never shown space so grungy. In 2000, A Space Odyssey, everything has a pristine look to it. But that's fine because that's how the story was written by Kubrick. Very clean and pristine. In this film, it's not. It's very grungy. It looks almost like, well, some people have even said that inside the spacecraft you have the chains hanging inside the warehouse area and water dripping and condensation. It's like a Gothic castle in a horror film.
Sure.
And it gives that feeling. It's a Gothic castle in space.
Well, it looks used. It looks like worn.
Exactly.
And it's much like he would
They're
go on
blue-collar people on the space. They're not top-end astronauts. They're blue-collar workers.
And they talk their dialogue and their emotional things are like blue-collar
Exactly.
workers.
That was the whole idea.
For corporations or whatever.
They're just regular Joes caught up in an extraordinary situation.
And then Ridley Scott went on to do Blade Runner after this, so it's similar kind of
2 of the greatest science fiction films in history.
Yeah. So what was, so Alien comes along, how is it different from everything before it, and what has it done since?
Well, it's like any film that leaves an impact on the culture like Alien clearly did. It has to be one up on anything before it. And the chest busting scene was like the shower scene in Psycho in 1960. That was something that had been done before. This was something no one had ever seen before, and it looks so realistic. And the funny thing is, as you look at it now, you don't see as much. It's not as graphic as it seemed at the time, because we've seen so much more since then. Sure. But it's again, you see it just enough to shock the daylights out of you, and it just pushed the edge of the envelope. That's what the film did. It left such an impact on people, and it was very dark, and you saw the alien. He moved almost like the grace of a ballet dancer. It was just beautifully choreographed how it moved. It's almost like he glided, and that was a unique look. It just had a weird purpose to its movement, and it just creeped the heck out of people.
Well, there was Scott had said, I never liked horror films before because in the end it's always been a man in a rubber suit. Well, there's one way to deal with that. The most important thing in a film of this type is not what you see, but the effect of what you think you saw.
Exactly, and how you see it.
Because the alien sort of kept hidden for quite a lot.
And it's a man in a rubber suit. It's probably the finest version that's ever been done. I don't think there's any way any CGI is going to make that look any creepier today.
Well, so a lot has been written about the pacing and that. Is there one aspect is there something that makes this such an outstanding example of film craft, and is there anything that falls short in the film, do you think?
I think what it does is it's a sort of an Agatha Christie and Alfred Hitchcock in space. It's like 10 little Indians and they all end up dead except for one and the murderer. The same thing here. One by one, all these crew members drop dead or killed. Or in the case of Ash, you know, the robot, we find out he's a robot, which is another shock that no one saw that coming either.
How do we find out he's a robot?
Well, because he starts doing things that to affect the crew members, and Yaphet Kotto gets in a fight with him, and he starts freaking out, and his head comes off, and it's all electronics inside, and you realize he's a damn robot, as they say. He was never a human being to begin with. And the characters are actually guinea pigs for this. They decide to use the alien as a potential biomechanical weapon.
So Ian Holm knows what's going on.
After a while, he certainly does.
Okay.
Yes. Not to give away the story to too many people, but who are listening, who've never seen it, or watching, who've never seen it.
Okay, so much is discussed about the editing and the pacing. Can you elaborate on that aspect and provide a couple examples of how that works toward what he does in direction or in film structure that achieves that pacing and that tension and makes it strong storytelling?
Ridley Scott is a Brit like Hitchcock. He totally borrowed from Hitchcock, but he didn't rip off Hitchcock. He just borrowed the ideas and used them for his own way. When you have Tom Skerritt in going through the air ducts, and you see they have this video, or not video, but this computer screen. You see this beep, 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 these lights showing where he is and where the alien is, and all you see is these white dots coming together. And the closer they get, the freaked out you get, because you know if they get together, he's going to get killed. And that was a form of pacing and editing that was completely unknown outside of Hitchcock for the most part.
Okay.
Maybe some Brian De Palma pictures. But that was unique in its pacing, and that was unique in its look, because you don't see anything but these white dots flashing on this computer screen showing you where he is and where the alien is and how they collide. And then when you do see it, it's a quick cut. It shows its head with like no eyes, and you see the hands come out, and then you see, obviously we know something happened to him. And that was a quick cut. That was done quickly, and that's all you needed to see, because you were on the edge of your seat all the way through. So
actually just that graphic element, it builds up more tension, more suspense
than anything else.
The creature.
Seeing the creature coming down the air ducts after him. Exactly.
Let's take a look at the trailer for the film, and then we'll come back and we'll continue here. So let's bring up the trailer. And the creature was designed by H.R. Geiger, and he was a science fiction artist, or did the comics, I believe?
I forgot, Scott or whoever discovered him actually and found his artwork and said, we need to meet this guy and see what he could add to the film. And basically he became the art director for the whole picture, because his ideas for the creature was the biomechanical look. It was biological but also mechanical, a fusion of the two. And that's how much the impact is on the film is seen in the design of the spacecraft, including the crash that they go to at the beginning of the film, where they get the kind of an SOS distress signal.
Right.
That whole craft has a biomechanical look about it. It totally looks alien in other worlds.
Oh God, it's moving right towards you. Move, get out of there.
You know how much of the picture is just Sigourney Weaver there in the last half? Is it like the midpoint where everyone has been killed?
No,
or
it's only like the last 5 or 6 minutes.
5 or 6 minutes.
So the last two characters are killed, Lambert and Yaphet Kotto's character, and that's a powerful scene. Veronica Cartwright's character is cornered by the alien, and Yaphet Kotto tells her to leave it so he can get it with the flamethrower, but she can't. She's frozen in fear, and he just goes up to it and grabs it with his bare hands and tries to strangle it, because he's a very large man himself. He could probably almost, you believe he could actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
And Yaphet Kotto said later that the emotion he played as an actor, he's almost like a method actor. He got into the character as much. He said I damn near did want to kill the guy wearing that costume, because it was so horrific and so deadly.
In 2002, the National Film Registry of the Library of Congress, put it in it became part of the National Film Registry,
yes, as a film
in the Library of Congress because of
yes.
cultural, historic, and aesthetically significant.
Absolutely.
2008, it was the 7th best science fiction film from the science fiction film genre by AFI, American Film Institute.
Wow.
Empire magazine, which I'm really not that familiar with, gave it the 33rd greatest movie of all time.
Well, the AFI list is that's very debatable. That's just 5,000 people voting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the AFI list is just for debate, not to be taken too seriously.
The writer O'Bannon said, "I didn't steal Alien from anybody. I stole it from everybody." And then he goes in, Thing from Another World, Howard Hawks, Forbidden Planet. There's some elements of Forbidden Planet. It has a kinship with Jaws and Halloween.
It sure does.
How can you talk about some of those things?
Well, I suppose in Forbidden Planet because it's on another world for one thing, and it's got, Ash is a humanoid robot, whereas Robbie the robot, of course, was a regular robot, but had human, proclivities about it.
Spoke.
And so that was definitely a connection there. So yeah, he used all those previous films as his inspiration, but he did it in an original way. It was never ripping off anything else, even It, the Terror from Beyond Space, which was the closest one that he came to imitating. Still, it's an original take on that type of story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a complete lifting like, oh, well, this has been done before, which you get in a lot of films today.
And it's usually, things are always going to have influences from things that
Of course.
aren't direct or it's just a natural
Even if it's
process.
subliminal or
Yeah,
subconscious.
subliminal.
Yeah.
Originally, the character of Ripley, this was going to be an all-male cast originally. So Alan Ladd Jr. is credited with suggesting that the character be a woman. Do you know if that's true?
That might be true because Alan Ladd, of course, Jr. was in charge of that at 20th Century Fox at the
Fox.
time. And that was probably a wise move to get both the women in there because of some audience identification purposes. And also it created a trend. As you saw, she became the very strong female character.
And Scott was fifth in line to direct this film.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, I read that before. It's fortuitous for him that he did get that he got lucky because I think the others either didn't work out or they weren't interested. And he ended up getting the film. And that's not uncommon. There's a lot of things like that happen in films that we don't realize what goes on behind the scenes. And sometimes they never come out and tell the full story unless, of course, they have documentaries on the Blu-rays and DVDs that tell all that. But sometimes they're kind of reluctant to always give out all the details, because there's sometimes some people's feelings can be hurt, because you never know what went on behind the scenes that might have stepped on somebody's toes.
Sure. And then Ridley Scott and I guess Sigourney Weaver have been asked. They didn't really realize that character would become like this
Breakout character.
heroine.
Yeah, I don't think anybody had any idea.
Female heroine. Was that unusual for to have a female heroine in a film at all like that at that time?
Well,
Can you think of other films where there was a female heroine in?
Not in 1978 and 79, that was pretty unusual, and on top of that, especially in science fiction or horror films, they were always the victim. In this case, she was not a victim.
Right, and they're usually the last person left is the sort of victim female. Or
Exactly,
whatever.
they're always in distress and they can't fend for themselves. She can more than fend for herself.
Roger Ebert said the Alien is much more cerebral movie than a much more cerebral movie than its sequels, with the characters and the audience genuinely engaged in curiosity and this weirdest of life forms. But unfortunately, the films it influenced studied its thrills and not its thinking. Would you agree with that?
That's probably true, because they just didn't have quite the finesse or the polish of the first film.
In what ways? Can you point out some
Well, they didn't focus
examples?
on the intellect of the characters. They focused on excitement
gore
and the attention deficit film editing. Now it's never the full take your time to tell a story, which is sadly a lot of films miss that.
Yeah, today everything's so, the pace. There's not that slight of build up like there was in the original.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like grab you right now.
I read that Scott wanted the alien to bite off Ripley's head and make a final log entry in her voice, and the producers vetoed that idea. Do you know if that's true?
I've never heard that before, but if it was, I can see why they vetoed it, because that would not have done well at the box office. Word of mouth would have killed it, because you're going to hate the ending.
And you're going to show the original cut of the film.
1979 cut.
Because there is a director's cut, which
About 3 minutes is all they added.
isn't as good as the.
It slows it down.
Yeah, it slows it down.
It
bogs
does.
it down.
It does, I think.
Since that film, these kind of female leads, these empowered female leads, have become kind of a trope in Scott's work, like Thelma and Louise,
Right.
which he was an Oscar nomination as best director for that film.
It's
So,
become sort of a trademark for him,
For
right?
him,
In a sense, yeah.
Roger Ebert also said it is among the most influential of modern action pictures because of its pacing, atmosphere, settings, etc.
Exactly. I totally agree with that. Like I said, if Alfred Hitchcock could have made a science fiction horror thriller, this would have been it.
What action films do you think it's had a big effect on contemporary?
Well, I can think of oh God, there's so many. Think of Total Recall with Schwarzenegger. That clearly I thought had an influence. It's a Philip K. Dick story, but I can tell the way it was made. Verhoeven, I think he clearly was taking a lead from Scott, because it's both action-packed and it's got a heck of a deep story to it. I mean, you got to follow it closely,
Right.
and it's very creative, and it's also sort of a groundbreaking film too. that comes to mind as a film I think that was influenced.
Okay. Is Alien, is it more horror film than science fiction, or vice?
I think it's equal parts.
Equal parts?
I think it is.
Is that unusual for the time?
Extremely unusual. Yes, you didn't see too many horror films that were science fiction based. You didn't see too many science fiction based films that had horror elements, at least not to this extreme, to this level.
There's a Salon.com critic named Andrew O. I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce it right. Here, I don't know. H-E-H-I-R. He notes that it has a profoundly existentialist undertow that makes it feel like a film noir.
That's very well put, because in a sense it is, because let's face it, Blade Runner is film noir, a science fiction film noir. So it took that film noir feeling, the darkness and the angst, and then he applied it to Blade Runner.
The character's kind of troubled and mysterious too, I guess.
Yeah.
The crew member character.
It has a film noir feel to it. The only thing missing is the saxophone music.
Let's take a look at. We've got some longer clips of the film.
Yes.
Let's take a look at those and let the audience see those.
What?
Out of here in 10 minutes. We won't need no rocket to fly through space.
We're going to need coolant for the air support system.
Get out of the way, Lance!
Wow. Let's go back. So this is a benefit for the Nebraska Kidney Foundation Association.
Yes.
It's your 42nd
42nd event since 1992.
Since 1992. Jocelyn Art Museum.
7 o'clock, May 25th.
Is this like cinema?
Cinemascope,
Like
very
cinemascope
wide, yeah,
picture?
very wide.
Probably a good print.
It's the archival, of the
print.
original 1979 cut of the film, not the director's, like you're saying.
And tickets go on sale at Hy-Vee stores.
Hy-Vee food stores, go to the customer service counters, $24, say I want a ticket to see Alien. And they can call 402-932-7200 and then buy them over the phone, or they'll give you the website to buy them online.
And that starts April 26th. And
April
the event
26th.
is May
Friday, May 25th.
At
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
We're going to have the International Plastic Modeler Society, the Fort Crook branch, is going to have 4 tables of incredible collectibles, like Star Trek and Star Wars. There's a lot of toy collectibles and models from this movie of the creature and all the
I
space
think I read
gadgets.
there were a lot of alien like sort of dolls and things.
We're going to have them on
but
display. We're going to
a
have
lot
several
of
on
them
display.
they quit making them because they were just too terrifying for kids. I read.
Well, these are more for maybe the teenagers and up,
the
but
teenagers
there-
and up.
there's a big collection of those. We're going to have them on display, and of course, Miss Cartwright will be autographing and selling pictures and autographing for the fans, of course, to meet her and talk with her, and she'll talk before the film. You know the regular routine
Yeah.
we have, and it's going to be quite an exciting and fun night.
How long will she talk? Like about 5-10 minutes?
Oh, probably
or
10 or
so,
15 minutes.
And then she doesn't have a book or anything, right?
No,
Or-
there'll be photographs she'll be selling and autographing from the movie and posing for pictures and charging for that, which is
Okay.
reasonable.
And how old? She was like 29 or 30 when she made this
Late
picture,
20s
too,
probably. Yeah,
so-
they were pretty young.
Yeah, they all look super young in those shots.
One thing I'd like to add too, the closing music was the Symphony Romantic by Howard Hanson. They didn't use the Jerry Goldsmith score at the last 5 minutes of the movie. And the music is very beautiful from 1930. It was composed. Now Howard Hanson, by the way, was born and raised in Wahoo, Nebraska.
Oh, that's very cool.
And they used that music in other films since then. So
And
it's a neat
why did they
connection.
use that?
It was more relaxing, it was more tranquil, it was decompressing because it's such an intense movie. And Goldsmith's music was a little too intense, they thought.
Do we know where the Howard Hanson connection came? I mean, why did they think of Howard Hanson?
Scott or the producers heard the music at one point and said, you know, I like this piece. Maybe we can put this in here and it allows people to relax. It's very tranquil music, very beautiful.
And that's the Wahoo, Nebraska native?
He's Wahoo, Nebraska,
Okay,
born and raised,
great.
composer Howard Hanson. Amazing.
All right. Well, we've run out of time, but thanks again for, it's always great.
It's
to have
always
you come
fun,
here.
yeah.
And I encourage everybody to go see the screening. You'll have a great time. They're always great fun. And we'll see you next time on Coming Attractions. Thanks for joining us.
Where's Earth?
Seems we have intercepted a transmission of unknown origin.
Human.
Unknown.
Can you see this?
I've never seen anything like it.
What the hell is that?
How do we kill it?
You can't.